All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Let's start off with the state of the nation with the conversation on the dailies right now. And my guest already with me in studio, Honorable Anthony Oluoch, Member of Parliament for Madara, is here. Asante for making time. Honorable James Gakuya, Member of Parliament in Embakasi North, thank you very much for making time.
Cool.
Receive apologies from Honorable Jeremiah Kioni. He says he's not able to join us because he's a bit indisposed, but we'll continue anyway. Let's take a look at the front page of the Daily. Omtatah moves to block finance bill before we get into the conversations. Jumping the gun, Busia Senator Okia Omtatah wants the High Court to stop public participation in the proposed taxation measures because, contrary to procedure, the National Assembly has prioritized the Finance Bill 2024 before considering and approving the Appropriations Act 2024. Honorable Oluoch, does Okia Omtatah have a point attempting to stop the finance bill? From what you've seen, is it good or bad for the nation?
There was a decision, I think, of the High Court, is it High Court or Court of Appeal, that says that by the time you table the Appropriations Act or bill and pass it, the finance bill and the revenue, which are the revenue-raising measures, also ought to be under considerations because the budget itself, the sister or the sequel to this is the Finance Act. I am not too sure that we have actually started the process for consideration of both because they are published but not yet tabled. Yeah. I think you would have a point if, for example, we had started to deal in earnest with the finance bill, but it is now under public participation. I think what has happened is the last time I was here when I checked is that they reduced the publication period to a shorter period, and the argument was that they wanted to allow more public participation. So I think the court will have to look at the previous judgment and then to see whether we are actually in breach of anything. Yeah. But in my view, and I think I was consulting with my colleague here, so long as the finance bill does not actually come to the House in terms of the second reading, we have not, in my view, flouted any procedural issues at the moment.
He's currently basing this on procedure. Yeah. But from the snippets you've seen of the finance bill, is it good or bad for the nation?
Well, I think that we are getting into this trajectory where we assume that, you know, more taxes and more taxes means that you can collect more revenue. I think from the previous budget, it has actually shown that the KRA has fallen short of its revenue collection. And I think that is the problem that we need to look at. President Ruto came on the platform that he was a student of Kibaki. President Kibaki did not bring this economy to where it was, and it did rise a lot in terms of the levels of GDP, the revenue collection. It was not because of more taxes. I think it simply increased the tax base and encouraged more Kenyans to be able to pay tax. I think the more taxes we are putting on Kenyans, the less collections we will get. For example, we are now looking at 2.5% that we are putting on people based on every value of your vehicle. What will happen? I will simply keep my vehicle home and use public transport and use Uber. Because if I am going to have my vehicle which costs, let's say, 8 million, costed every subsequent financial year, it means that the value of buying a car over a period of, let's say, 10 years will double. Yeah? You're looking at the digital space, and this government stated objective of saying that the ICT, and you've seen in the US, I think some collaboration between the Silicon Valley and Silicon Savannah over the ICT. There is a disconnect between what the government says that this is the space where we will create more jobs for people, this is the engine of economic development, and the punitive, more taxes we are putting. Digital lending is attracting more money now. Money transfers attracting more money now. Digital content creators are attracting more money now. You've looked at the manufacturing area, like the edible oils. Yeah. Edible oils based on the taxes, and I was listening to Bill Okero here the other day. Yeah. It will cost you 3,000 shillings or less to actually import and refine the crude oil. But the government taxes will make you pay 6,000 shillings more on this. So are we encouraging manufacturing? Are we encouraging this space to grow, or are we? And then you have other things in terms of excise duties on telephone, internet, data, borrowing money, and this is where the young people are.
Yeah.
You are in a space where you have young people. We're talking about the financial inclusion area, where you're talking about the Hustler Fund,
yeah,
and all these other digital funds. This is the space where young people who are being called the hustlers are. We are increasing taxes on this. There was an issue about tax on bread. I don't know if they beat a retreat on that, but there was a question about you want to tax more on bread. You know, this is a staple food, yeah, of people in Kenya. So I think that we are not on the correct trajectory, yeah, in terms of our ability to try and stabilize this economy. Mm-hmm. And we are perhaps, and I listened to my good friend Didi Nyoro here the other day, and the big question that the other panelist was raising, and which I agree with, is that when we focus too much on what the donor people want us to do, balance our books, what is the GDP ratio versus this, and all these other financial, statistical issues that do not exactly translate into, does the common mwananchi have more money into their pockets? No. Is it easier for Kenyans to make it in their day-to-day life? We need to be able to say at the end of the day that, yes, we are raising more money in order to, let's say, fund our development records, yeah, I mean our development, but at the same time, we are making life much more easier for the people. For the people.
Okay, let me hear what Gakuya has to say about the Finance Bill 2024. What are your thoughts on this? Is it helping or destroying the nation?
Thank you, and allow me to salute viewers wherever they are watching us from. And coming to the matter Finance Bill, my take is that every financial year, government projections and trajectories must be based on Finance Bill, because the Finance Bill creates base of how to harness resources into one basket. And there is no way you can project to leap a certain target without having knowledge on where you are targeting to expand your base to earn more. And in this case, I would say taxes are not a bad issue, because taxes has been the way to manage governments worldwide. What we should do is not to go extremely excess and just putting, kneeling down the common man and at his neck.
Is this hurting the common man right now as is? The proposals
one I would say yes. There is those nitty-gritty areas that you should not touch. One, when you say that you want to tax more a bread is a key food for every household. That you're telling us, most of the companies will close, because what will happen is a decrease of the sale of that commodity. That's automatically realize. Number two is that you can also start to say that you want to tax everybody, including a farmer and his produce, and every issue that was there before, issues to do of candles and everything. You may go to extreme. One is that you need to strike a balance. As much as you want to expand the base of your resource harness, one, you must also know and ask yourself, where are you? Where have you found these Kenyans? Where are they? Was the donkey already overburdened? And are you dislodging it, or you are still crippling it? Yeah. And how will it happen at the end of the day? So in this case, I would say the government should consider. Yeah. Because government is elected by people, and it's a federal government, and it's important to reason with them and work together. But sometimes we put some punitive measures and especially in tax regime. And this tax regime to us is not working well. One, we were killing our industries, and we are killing our industries with the tax regime. We must also consider what are your neighbors doing, at what level are they in terms of tax regime. And you realize in our country, our investors are still closing shops and moving to a neighboring country because we are almost at 52 on the tax regime, where the next country is Tanzania with 29. So you compare 52 and 29, then the business tells you that you are opening a business also to make some profit.
Yeah.
But you cannot be able to say that you are opening business just to assist government to reap.
So when this comes to the floor of the House, will you oppose it as is?
It is high time that we must move to bills as they come, and you consider them as they are with merit. Where it's not merited, because any bill is a bill, and it is open for any amendment at the floor of the House. And therefore, proposals to amend will still come to the floor. But I think where it is critical, we need to amend it, because you cannot still kill the whole baby. Because finally you need to have a finance bill. Though, even though it is killed, you still revert to the last financial bill as finance bill, because it's not vacuum. But I would say it is important to look at it and look to those critical areas that we think that actually we are pressing our common man.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, should this come to the floor as is? Because we've seen in the last public participation that almost 90% of everything that Kenyans said was not implemented. All the amendments that came were shot down in the floor. Then what happens? Are we going to continue to lament, or should we this time look up to MPs to defend the people?
Well, unfortunately, the way the parliament is structured in terms of its majoritarianism is that majority will usually have their way. And in as much as my good friend is also my chair in the Trade Committee and also my neighbor from Embakasi North, what will happen is that we will have our colleagues from the other side of the divide. I won't say completely lose of their sight under Article 95, which is representation, and to resolve issues that concerns the people, because really the Constitution, first and foremost, enjoins us as members of Parliament to be able to be sensitive to what it is that our constituents are telling us. And our constituents at the moment are telling us that the burden that you have put on us is way too high. You have put levy after levy on us, and we look up to you to stand in the gap between the appetite of government to dig into your pocket. So you dig into the pocket of civil servants and say, pay housing levy, 30,000 people shoulder the burden of 49 million Kenyans to build houses, social housing. And I appreciate, because there is that need to try and reduce people staying in informal settlements and get them into better living places. But the conversation is, how do we implement that? So you saw what happened in the last financial year. We voted on every single clause, which was unnecessary, and stayed up to midnight and went on division, every single thing. And we were saying, these things are punitive. And then what happened? It was passed, nevertheless, notwithstanding that there were court decisions, and Omtatah went to court on this on a number of issues, on the fuel levy, on the issue of housing, and many other punitive taxes that were there. You have seen now that they are raising the motor vehicle tax. So that means that on top of you paying 16% or whatever punitive taxes that were there on fuel and the rising cost, the person who is running a matatu, because they have to pay an additional 2.5%, what will happen is you will have 16% on fuel, and you have an additional 2.5% which they have to pay to the Commissioner of Insurance, passed on to the commuter. So you're probably going to end up with, more commuter fares that are up. So instead of 16%, you have 17.5%, 18%. These are going to be passed on the people. Eventually, we may end up in the same situation we are, which is very unfortunate, that if the public cannot be listened to at public participation, and the very likelihood that that will happen is there. The public participation sometimes is just a charade. You know, let's get their views, but the decision is already made elsewhere on what the revenue-raising measures are going to be. So you're going to have a situation in which Parliament and the members of Parliament, and we are in the minority, we raise the issues, make a lot of noise, and still the bill gets passed. Next step is that we will probably still end up in the streets.
Yeah.
Another cycle of economic disruption and limited or muted tax collection because of closure of business and other things. So I have this feeling that we will be repeating what happened last year. Same processes, government won't listen, and eventually the finance bill will still be passed in its current form.
Gakuya, so what if government doesn't listen, like what Anthony Lwach is saying?
One thing, let us agree that when matters comes to the floor of the House, those who carry the days are the numbers. You may find a situation where, as much as there are those who are against with a particular number of clauses in that particular finance bill, but you might find a situation where people has been mobilized and given a certain direction to take in what we call party lines.
By mobilization, you mean bribed?
Not by bribe. You are being hyped to a particular direction.
So there's a party position.
By the party positions. Okay. And you may find that, in fact, those who has no guts should stick to the party lines. But what I would say is that it's important to have what we call an independent mind when you are casting your vote, and especially to these particular critical issues. Because the country is ours, and we need, as members who represent the people, to feel with the pinches of the people where we also believe that actually things are not right. But this does not say that actually we are against collection of revenue. But at some point, we are going beyond where we should not push the citizens of this country to a certain level. Okay. You must not tax them from the level of the fuel all the way to the last item. And you want these people still to survive. People, let me tell you, and worldwide, that massive taxes also sometimes does not reflect. And my big question is, as much as the last financial year's finance bill is in place, still KRA are missing their targets. Why do you think that's why? Because what people will do is just hide from paying tax, and they will just find their way off. And that's what they do. But if you stick with something that actually is not plaintive to the people, they will ride with you. Okay. And they will agree to pay taxes. So we are losing more when you are pushing them to the corner. And I think it is high time that we must understand how to give Kenyans incentives so that they can also be part of the package.
So as a member for Embakasi North, if this comes to the floor as is, are you going to vote with the opposition?
Because I'm sure we may go to the same way of cross by cross. Yeah. I will pass the crosses that I think they are right, and I will post those crosses which I think they are not right.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
I think the other thing that we need to interrogate here is what are the fundamentals that underpin our budget, entire budget-making process, and also which is the budget-making organ. And I think this is an argument that we have labored over since the time of J.B. Muturi in the last parliament to now. The constitutional architecture and the way I have understood it from my, as a lawmaker and also as a lawyer, is that Parliament itself is the budget-making organ. But the way and I know the government has its priorities and manifesto and things, and which they ought to present as wish list. But the budget-making house in terms of the provision of the Constitution and why even the Senate is not allowed to touch questions to do with budget is the National Assembly. Yeah? The National Assembly presides over this, and ought to be allowed to be the one that decides, instead of having a budget that comes that is already predetermined. Use the formula that they use in other places like the US, where every single year you have to come and build the budget from the bottom. We have a budget that already comes from the top, that you have X expenditures and things. And so you have a budget in which every year we have revenue shortfalls, and then you come and do not find corresponding expenditure reductions. So in your 4-point-something trillion or 4 trillion budget that you are doing, when you have revenue shortfalls, where should we go in terms of cuts? Yeah? And so you interrogate and see between the finance bill and the budget estimates, and you find that we're trying to raise 4 trillion. Where have we put in more money? And where have we reduced money? Yeah? In places where we ought to have put money that would spur economic growth and more revenue collections, which is the committee where we sit and he is my chair, he will confirm that the government has put, I don't know, Chair, how much is the total budget for our MSMEs, where we have small, medium enterprises, where if you put in money, a lot of our young people and hustlers who would be able to spur, and in the US, I think this is the backbone of the US economy, which is the small, medium enterprises. You will find that there is probably a budget, either it has stagnated or it has gone down. Yeah? You find that which are the major places where we have put more budget increase. I think, if I'm not wrong, in the security, interior and defense, you have a more than 10% increase. Okay. Yeah? Let's look at the places where if you spend in more, like in our education, you will probably eventually find that, you know, a more educated workforce may eventually end up being the engine for more economic growth and more expenditure. Okay. You find in our education sector, school feeding program has suffered cuts. I don't know whether we have any money on CBC. We are going into grade 9. We don't have money on infrastructure on that. School infrastructure funding after the flooding and all that. We have put perhaps more money in defense and security and more money maybe on roads and less money, I think, on things like agriculture and the manufacturing area. So I would like my chair here to say what is the government's priority and focus when in the committee we chair, where we struggle every year to find money to put on our sagas and our state departments that would be able to spur the economy. And I've just talked about ICT. There is a disconnect between what the government tells us, that this is the space where you'll get jobs, and the amount of money they want to allocate. Okay. So I think the fundamentals and principles around which our Finance Act and revenue measures versus budget estimates, there is a problem.
Okay, I'll come to Chair to clarify that. But now that you're still on the floor, Mheshimiwa Oluoch, there was drama during a food distribution by the Orange Democratic Party movement leaders in Mathare area. They were there last week. It was cut short after chaos erupted after rowdy youth stormed the venue, prompting the leaders to hurriedly leave the area. And this is what happened. Just watch.
No sooner had ODM leaders taken to the podium to address the residents of Mathare area of Nairobi than the rowdy youth stormed the venue, brandishing placards denouncing area Member of Parliament Anthony Oluoch. Trouble started when the area Member of Parliament was handed a microphone to address his constituents and welcome ODM bigwigs in attendance, including Edwin Sifuna and former Governors Ali Hassan Joho and Wycliffe Oparanya, who both serve as ODM deputy party leaders.
Hapa Mathare hakuna fujo! Hakuna fujo! Hakuna fujo! Tumekuja kupokea msaada ya chama cha ODM.
The gate crashers were not having any of what their legislator was saying, continuously jeering and interrupting his address. Attempts by leaders led by Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna to restore calm were unsuccessful.
Hakuna campaign hapa, hakuna uchaguzi, tumekuja kuleta chakula, si ndio? Bas.
The chaos witnessed have been blamed on political rivalry between the area member of parliament and Mabatini ward member of county assembly Wilfred Odalo.
Sasa tumekuja hapa, tumeona siasa imejaja hapa, lakini sisi tumekuja hapa kupeana chakula. Siasa tutarudi mwaka wa 2027.
ODM party members were delivering a consignment of donations, food and non-food items for Mathare residents impacted by floods, in line with aid efforts coordinated by the ODM Disaster Response Committee. When the situation escalated, the leaders dismissed the meeting, hurriedly leaving without distributing the food. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
What happened there?
First of all, I think I want to thank the Orange Democratic Movement Party leader, Raila Odinga, and the deputy party leaders who saw it fit to make interventions of a humanitarian nature to Mathare, not just to Mathare. I think they went to Mavoko. They're still receiving food in other areas, and which is an ongoing process. I think there is a total mischaracterization of what happened in Mathare constituency. And looking at those clips, I think when somebody looks at what you have put there vis-a-vis the event that took place in the constituency, I have been asked several times whether those are two events. If you look at what was aired on your sister station, Ramogi, it was even more graphic than this. You see here you're saying Mathare MP jeered by rowdy youth. Who are these rowdy youths? You are showing people who are ecstatically enthusiastic and supporting the party intervention to bring them food and posting them on your media as if those were the people who are jeering.
They did not want to listen to anything you're saying.
No. Those, I have showed you myself, I sent you the clips on my phone here. The people who were speaking were holding placards, were 20 people at a corner. The people who are in front right here, the ones that you've just shown, are actually ecstatically, enthusiastically supporting the process. That is exactly you. You have turned the entire clip of what was happening on its head.
So there were 20 people who were against you?
There were 20 people holding placards, and I can tell you what happened. When the food distribution process was flagged off the day before, the person whom I will not name, whom you said is a rival, began to whip emotions about an event that was coming as if it was a political rally that people were going to. The person prepared posters and put them all over social media in Mathare Jukua, saying that, juxtaposing his picture with our deputy party leader, Joe, on one side, and Oparanya, and saying that he would be bringing the person, not to an event which was humanitarian food distribution, but, quote unquote, to a political contest. When we arrived, the two deputy party leaders were very shocked to be received by youth wielding pangas in full daylight. Full daylight. Full daylight. Eventually, those people were contained, and the situation that and the narrative that was supposed to have ensued would have been worse had it not been out of the political maturity and the temperament that the people of the constituency held up to. They gave the impression that food was not distributed. Nobody said that we were coming to distribute food. We were coming to donate food, and the procedure that had been used for food distribution was that food was taken to the DCC's place, received, flagged, and then there is a structure which Red Cross and the Nyumba Kumi and the chiefs and the other people used for food distribution.
Okay.
So the process of food distribution, when Gachagua came, when Kuria came, when Sakaja came, when Red Cross and other people came, no food distribution can be done in a situation like this.
So
food
you
is
donate
received,
and then they're given,
and the distribution is done through the networks and the camp.
Okay.
So the narrative that these people You can see those are the people who are there. There are about 10 or 15 people around there. These people right in front of the podium down there, these are people who are actually exclaiming and supporting the process.
So this was basically a political contest between yourself and your rival.
That was the thing that was put, drummed up by the opponent to make this look like, look at this. These are people who are actually cheering the process. But somebody made politicized and militarized a food distribution process to appear as if it was a political contest.
Okay.
It was not a political contest. And the last point that I want to make, Citizen and your sister Ramogi gave the impression that people left in a half. I mean, when you see people coming to a function in a political stronghold of Baba, how do you see people entering and leaving? Yeah? In any place where you're doing any political situation, youth will come and bring you in, and they will bring you out the way they will bring their leaders. Okay. So number one, leaders addressed the function. They handed over the food. There was an attempt at disruption, and the attempt at disruption, which is at that corner, was contained. The actual ugly situation was supposed to be that when food was going to be distributed, they had planned to have chaos, so that there would be tear gas and there would be people running around, and that never happened.
Yeah,
and so Citizen and Ramogi fell into the script that was planned, that there was supposed to be chaos, which never took place.
But you just confirmed that there was disruption.
There was disruption and there was tension. There was disruption, and Citizen decided to focus on the people who were actually there to receive food, turn it on its head as if those people had rejected their member of parliament, which was not true.
But there was an attempt by some
to
upstage you as the member of parliament.
Yes, there was an attempt which we contained.
Okay.
Yes.
Has this been reported to the authorities in any way? Because you're alleging that there were actually weapons involved.
Yes, the DCC has taken up that place because these people followed the two deputy party leaders into the boardroom and disrupted an attempt by the DCC to brief the two leaders and the ODM party of the situation that was there. There was total disruption inside the boardroom by people wielding pangas. They destroyed furniture in the DCC's office and eventually ensured that there was no briefing that took place by the DCC to the two party leaders. But if you look at the ground situation, the ground situation was completely contained, and what was supposed to degenerate into total chaos was completely held into abeyance.
All right. On that note, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking about other matters here of politics, by the way, in the Mount Kenya region. What's going on in the Mount Kenya region? That's a conversation we're going to have right after this break. Also, we'll take a look at some of the feedback coming through at Trevor Mbidi at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak.